So Pokemon Legends ZA just got announced and it got me thinking, what if my favorite region got a Legends game? So I want to run through some of my ideas, what the story could be about, and what additions could be made. So for starters, this game will be called Pokemon Legends Eclipse. Is that original? No. Is there probably a fan-made game out there called that? Probably. But it's too good of a title not to use, so just roll with it. So what would the story be about? Well, let's go back in time, shall we? We know that at some point in history, the ancestors of the Ultra Recon Squad injured Necrozma when they tried to steal its light. Doing that caused the spreading of Z crystals across Alola and other universes. We also know that one of Solgaleo or Lunala arrived to Alola through an Ultra Wormhole and was attacked by the Tapus, who saw the strange creature as a threat to the island. After defeating the Tapus though, the beings made peace with each other and the royalty of Alola saw Solgaleo and Lunala as beings to be revered. Sometime later, Necrozma, in agonizing pain from its injury, opened an Ultra Wormhole to Alola, stealing its light and shrouding the region in darkness, where it's given the name the Pillager of Light. Solgaleo or Lunala try to fight it, but Necrozma defeats them, bonding with them to become an Ultra Sun and Moon box art. The Tapus, along with a young trainer, are able to defeat it, and the region's light is returned. These events are what inspired the Alolan people to create the Island Challenge, gathering Z Power Crystals as you go. We also know that Acerola's ancestor, the King, had all books about Necrozma discarded. So in this Legends game, the focus could be us as a young trainer that battled Necrozma alongside the Tapus and defeated it. We're not going to have two factions that worship Solgaleo and Lunala in this story, since that would be too similar to what happens in Legends Arceus, so we'll just say that everyone reveres them. But I do think that the islands being like sports fans and gassing up their island guardian while trashing the others would be pretty fun, honestly. The big new characters in this game would be the Alolan royal family. Acerola is an orphan and the only known surviving member of that royal lineage. The region obviously doesn't have a monarchy anymore, but why? Well, this story could show us why it eventually fell. Have us meet multiple members of the family. Some of them good, some of them bad. One of them could even be an antagonist, even aiding Necrozma in some way. That could add extra motivation for why Acerola's ancestor would want to get rid of all the books about Necrozma, because it would make their family history look bad. And that infighting in the family might be what caused the royal family's collapse. Not to mention, we could see a bunch of Alolan Meowths and Persians, since they were apparently brought to Alola because of the Alolan royal family. But overall, I don't think the story should just focus on Necrozma, as it got a lot of spotlight in Ultra Sun and Moon. This game would be about a legendary Pokemon lost to history, a part of the legend long forgotten. And who could that Pokemon be? A fifth Tapu, one that dwells in the volcano on Akala Island, based on the Hawaiian goddess of volcanoes and fire herself, Pele, who would be enraged by the events of the game, threatening to cause a volcanic eruption that would destroy all of Alola. Why does this make sense? Well, we know that the four Tapus are already a little temperamental. Tapu Koko's dex entry describes it as having a hair-trigger temper, while Tapu Lele is guilelessly cruel. Tapu Fini causes terrible calamities to those who recklessly approach it. And Tapu Bulu seems to be the most reasonable of the four. It makes ringing noises with its tail to basically tell others to stop what they're doing before it gets violent. Funny enough, even though it seems to be the most peaceful of the four, it's the only one that we actually see direct results of their violence, as Tapu Village was destroyed by Bulu after people built a thrifty Mega Mart there on sacred grounds. So the idea of there being a Tapu that's antagonistic to the player is not far-fetched at all. And in this story, the Tapus would be less reclusive than they are in present day, having more direct contact with the Alolan people and with each other, commanding the respect of the people while also being dangerous, as their reputations indicate. Akala Island would have two kahunas in this story, one for Lele and the other for the volcanic Tapu. The kahuna chosen by the volcanic Tapu would be an ancestor to Kiawe, to tie into him being the trial captain there in modern day. In this story, the volcanic Tapu would get sealed away in the volcano at the end, and after helping defeat it, the other four Tapus would become more reclusive, deciding that the people are better off with them not being around as much, still protecting the island, but not often seen. And over the generations, the fifth and most violent Tapu is lost to history. And hey, you may be asking, why would there be a fifth Tapu? That wasn't established in the previous 2 games. You can't just add another one. Well, Legends Arceus just kinda threw an extra genie into the mix for seemingly no reason when we had Black and White and Black 2 White 2, so yeah, we definitely can. One of the most enjoyable aspects of Pokemon Legends is that the world feels more dangerous. When you're walking around, the Pokemon feel like a threat to you, and not just little NPCs that you can run into. I mean, you were expected to die on your first mission in Legends Arceus. Will Alola be similar? Yes, but in a different way. Unlike in Hisui, where a lot of the people, especially in Jubilife Village, were not originally from the region, the people of Alola are used to the Pokemon there and the dangers that they pose. And they've even already bonded with some of them, as Professor Laventon even mentioned that Alola has rideable Pokemon already, so we can kind of assume that Pokemon like Mudsdale and Tauros are already domesticated. So while yes, wild Pokemon are still going to try to attack you in Legends Arceus, the real danger is going to lie in the Island Challenge. There's going to be no training wheels, no gates put up around the trial sites to keep everyone safe like Alola has in current day. Your trial tasks are going to be more life-threatening, as opposed to identifying differences in traditional dances for Kiawe or gathering ingredients for Mallow. Which brings up another aspect of this game. game, a less commercialized Alola. Similar to Hawaii, the Alola region is full of tourists. Hau'oli City is filled with shops, there's a giant golf resort on Akala Island, so this game would let us see what those areas looked like before they were turned into tourist destinations. We also know that the region has multiple cities with Japanese influences, so we could see some people from Kanto and Johto moving to Alola, and starting to settle in those areas. Similar to how Legends Arceus gave us Hisuian forms and evolutions for different Pokemon which don't exist anymore, we would get the same here. As far as who the starters would be, I would choose Bulbasaur, Tepig, and Sobble. I chose Venusaur because I feel like there's some really interesting flora that could only be found in the Alola region that you could add to Venusaur. I basically just picked Emboar because I really want to see them turn it into a quadruped, and Inteleon, I don't even know what they would do with it. Just please do something else, just anything else, please. We could also get other evolutions and forms for Alolan Pokemon that don't exist anymore. Like how about a male Salandit evolution? Its Ultra Sun and Moon Dex entry says that they give most of their food to the females, and so the males don't evolve due to malnutrition. So they're simps. So it's easy to assume that there would be a male Salandit evolution hundreds of years ago. After all, there wasn't the internet yet, so they wouldn't be donating all their money to streamers who won't notice them. And Mimikyu is a perfect candidate for a new form. It could try to mimic another Pokemon that was popular at the time. Or better yet, we could get them in their true form and see what's actually under the cloak, and they could be running around the region wreaking havoc. Aura and Guru would be perfect for one of the totems, as multiple Dex entries have mentioned them throwing Pokeballs and commanding other Pokemon. So having them command other Pokemon to come in and fight for them before you can even battle them would be really fun. And since the name we're going with here is Pokemon Legends Eclipse, how about a Pokemon or two that have evolutions tied to an eclipse? I don't know how that would even work, but Rockruff already has evolutions tied to different times of the day. Maybe it could have one for an eclipse too. They also have the lore to introduce us to a new bird Pokemon that's since gone extinct. Yungoos being imported into the region to stop the Rattata problem is a direct reference to when Asian mongoose were brought to Hawaii to hunt rats on farmland. But the mongoose ended up becoming an invasive species, preying on the birds there instead, and the rat problem persisted. So those birds were easy prey for the mongoose, as they had no natural predators beforehand to worry about, and were not adapted to handle it. In Alola, the young goose could have hunted a defenseless bird species to extinction, and this game could introduce us to it, since young goose wouldn't have been brought to the region yet. We could also get new Ultra Beasts, since they're just found in different portals in Ultra Space, so there's really no limit to how many you could introduce. Another aspect of Pokemon Legends that fans loved was the introduction of ancestors for pre-existing characters. Not only that, you can introduce original characters who become fan favorites, like Adaman, who have big impacts on the story, and then you can introduce their descendants later on, like they did with Perrin. And the Alola region is filled with uniquely designed and interesting characters like Mallow, Olivia, and Lana that could all have really cool looking ancestors. So the island kahunas and trial captains back then would be a mix of brand new characters and ones who are ancestors of people we already know. We know that Hapu succeeded her deceased grandfather as the island kahuna, but it's not too far-fetched to think that being the kahuna of Pony Island has been passed down in her family for hundreds of years. As far as other characters go, meeting the ancestor of Hala and Hau is a must, and whoever that ancestor is could give us some visual cues as to who Hau's father might be. The battle royale in present day that Professor Kukui participates in was inspired by the battles between the 4 Tapus, so seeing Kukui's ancestor also participating in it would be really cool, or even having them create it in the first place. If you want to talk about brand new characters that you could introduce, how about 4 siblings that each live on one of the islands, and they're themed to look like and has one of the Oricorio dance styles. Another character whose ancestor could play a huge role in these games is Lusamine. We know that Lusamine's father created the Aether Foundation, and that there are presumably multiple regions where it operates. As Wick mentions that she's part of the Alolan branch of the Foundation. Obviously, Lusamine's father wouldn't have even been born yet, so he couldn't start the Aether Foundation in this game. But what if we got Lusamine's ancestor visiting Alola on a research trip from another region, like Charles Darwin visiting the Galapagos Islands to research the animals there? The events of the game could show this ancestor taking a particular interest in Alola's natural habitats, and sparks their interest in Pokemon conservation, planting the seeds for their descendants' fascination with the same subject down the line, and founds the Aether Foundation. Unlike Professor Laventon from Legends Arceus, who's kind of an authority figure for the player, I would try to make them more of a Sonia type character, who grows more confident in themselves as the game goes along. At the end of the game, you can even have a cutscene saying goodbye to them as their ship arrives to take them home. And it will have been this character's research into Alola that led to Lusamine's father starting the Foundation there to begin with. Lusamine, Lily, and Gladion play such a huge role in the original games that having their ancestor play a big role in this story just makes sense. I also just really want to do a Lusamine video because I think she's fascinating, and I want to delve into what happened to her in Sun and Moon, Moon and why Ultra Sun and Moon ruined her, so let me know if you'd want to see me make that next. If Game Freak is watching this, I have a great argument for why you should want to make this region into a Legends game. Open world games aren't really your strong suit, just look at the frame rates and textures in Scarlet and Violet. Legends Arceus at least had the benefit of only having to load in certain areas of the region at a time. Apparently this next Legends game is only going to take place in Lumio's city. Alola gives you the perfect opportunity to limit how much has to be loaded in because you only need to load in one island at a time, and then allow fast travel to the other islands with loading screens. It's perfect for you, Game Freak, like it's right there. All in all though, I really hope this next Legends game in Kalos is awesome, because that's just going to embolden Game Freak to want to make more Legends games in the future. But we'll have to wait and see. Let me know in the comments what regions you want to see get a Legends game. I'd love to do a video discussing all your ideas and trying to expand on them. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, hit that like button and consider subscribing. Have a great day.